tomatoes. All of these boxes here are full of beautiful San Marzano tomatoes from our organic local farm, Johnson's Backyard Garden. This is our annual adventure to can. This is 60 pounds of tomatoes. So while they are bountiful and in season, we like to can them. So we have them throughout the year for sauces, soups, just whatever we want to make for dinner. When it's February and you really don't want those mealy tomatoes at the grocery store, we can grab a can that's shelf stable from the pantry. So today is going to be a long day.
What time is it?
It is about 10:30. It's probably going to be a 12-hour adventure. We're sterilizing our jars. Oh, stop. We're sterilizing our jars now, and we are about to get started. All tomatoes! Scooches!
So what's first?
So the first step in the process is we have to score all the tomatoes.
Score?
Score.
Like soccer?
No. Just make little small cuts. So in the bottom side, this is the top where the stem is. This is the bottom. You want to just make a little X in it, a little score like that. And then that'll make them much easier to peel. So after we score all of these, then we'll have to blanch them and peel them and then start to process them. So all of these tomatoes need to be scored.
Let's score.
Let's score.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Why is it called canning? These are jars.
They are jars.
This is not a can.
I don't know. I'd have to.
We're jarring tomatoes.
We're jarring tomatoes. I think it's just because canning is kind of known as the act of
process.
Preserving the goods.
Yeah, we're jarring.
I guess today we are jarring. So.
All right. So what's next?
So what's next is we are blanching the tomatoes. So these are the tomatoes that were already scored.
We scored.
And you just blanch them in boiling water until the skins kind of start to pop a little bit, and then you do them in an ice bath. So you stop the cooking. You don't want the tomatoes to actually cook. It's just to help peel the skins. So you can see here, this is our score mark, and look how easy those skins just peel right off. So you just, so what I do is I take all my skins and my seeds, and I put them through a food mill. Because I really like to minimize the amount of waste that we have. So I think I got all the skin off of that. See how pretty that looks? Yeah. So in San Marzano's, there's only 2 seed pockets, one on either side. You can kind of see. So that's what makes it such a great sauce tomato, is because they're very meaty and they don't have a lot of seeds in them. But when you scrape out those seeds and the skins, there's still a decent amount of juice that's left just from the nature of removing it. And there's no reason to not can the juice as well. So this here will be my bowl for just the meat. You can see, I mean, that's
what's on your
almost
hands?
all the tomato. Oh, I've got gloves on my hands.
What's your slogan?
Ain't no love if there ain't no glove. So when you're doing this much work with produce, especially when it's in water, your finger's gonna look like raisins real quick. So this also helps keep my hands a little bit cleaner. So if I need to go do something else instead of this, I can just take the gloves off and move on with my life. So we have several boxes of gloves that we just kind of keep handy around the house for cooking and things like that.
So how long did the scoring take?
The scoring only took about 20 minutes,
Okay.
Which was pretty good. I think both of us were kind of going at it. So we are gonna do this process.
This is gonna take a few hours.
This is gonna take a few hours.
I'm gonna check in a little bit when you want to do your.
Very manual process.
I want to see you do the food mill a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. I'll need to fill it up more first.
Okay. So while you're doing this,
Yep. which is going to take me forever.
This is going to take a few hours.
Yep.
I'm going to work on salsa.
Sounds great.
So I've got almost 10 pounds of, what are they called? Inglorious?
They're called Inglorious tomatoes.
What does that mean?
So the way they tag them is basically saying that they are, imperfect in some sort of way. It might be something that they don't want to necessarily bring to the market or provide to restaurants.
Yeah, but these look pretty good.
These are perfect. I can't find any issues with them at all. So,
Yeah. So these aren't San Marzanos.
Those are not San Marzanos. Those are just your kind of standard, typical, large
Tomato
homegrown
slicers.
tomato slicers. Yeah. Still organic. They're still from the farm, and we've had really good luck with them in the past. For that type of tomato, they are meatier than what you would normally get, like at the grocery store. Maybe it's because they're organic. I don't know. But
You're getting some tomatoes there.
yeah. So far, here's the meat. And the goal here is no seeds. So this is just meat. And then here, this is where all the seeds, the stems, and the skins
How
go.
much longer before you're ready to twirl that thing?
Maybe another 10 minutes.
All right.
Great.
Also for the salsa, just over 2 pounds of onions to go with the Inglorious. And then just over a pound of peppers. What do you got? These giant jalapenos, some habaneros, and one big poblano.
This is another reason why wearing gloves in the kitchen is very important, because you're not going to want to
You wanna
touch these spicy. No, thank you.
You sure?
Yeah, although it's probably got a nice spicy fruitiness. Please don't eat it. But using the gloves with peppers is a great idea. That way you don't get all that pepper oil in it.
What if I still rub my eye with it?
I would take the glove off first.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea. So, I have not really put much of that into the tomatoes yet, but I wanted to kind of show you what I'm doing over here with the food mill. So this is our meat of the tomatoes, and in the food mill, everything else goes in here. So this is the skins, the seeds, the stems, everything that you don't want.
Some tomato
Right, so the weight of this is already going to start pushing through. So this is a food mill. I grew up calling it a moolie. And what you do is at the bottom of this, there's a blade, and it basically mills your food. It grinds your food. So there's different blade options that you can have. This is really handy for sauces. It's also great for making mashed potatoes or any other type of like food puree. But I don't want those seeds or the skins in
You doing okay there?
my juice. Yeah, excuse me, I had a little burp there. I don't want any of that in my juice. I want my juice to be as clean as possible. So let me get the handle over here. And they have these nice little feet that help rest onto a larger bowl. And all you do is spin this around. And as you can see, I'm getting beautiful, clean tomato juice
With your scraps.
with my scraps. So I really don't love wasting food, especially vegetable scraps, because they really make great vegetable stock. So, you know, all of your onions, potatoes, celery, peppers, all of that stuff, mushroom stems are great all in a vegetable stock. So for this though, since this is just the pure tomato juice, we'll can this and we'll use it throughout the year. Sometimes I'll put it in a sauce instead of a stock or a broth. It's also great for homemade Bloody Marys. And it's also really good when you're making your tomato sauce too. Sometimes you want to start with a larger volume of tomatoes and tomato juice, and then reduce that down, because then the reduction is what gets you that sweetness in your tomato sauce without adding sugar. So this is all I'm doing right here. Once it gets pretty full, I start spinning it. You can see there's like a blade in here that pushes the food product down in the circle against the mill at the bottom. And I just do this a couple times. If you reverse it, it scrapes it all off of that mill blade. You can kind of see the mill blade in there. and then you keep spinning, and it'll extract everything that's left out of the stems, the skins, the seeds, so you can get some really great juice product out of it. So as you can see here, it's some beautiful tomato juice. No skin, no seeds, just perfectly clean.
Nice. Love you.
Love you.
Oh, and I got my habaneros skewered so I can grill them. That'll be nice. All right, so I'm outside. I got the grill going. I put some pecan wood chips in the little smoke box because Laurel seems to do better with pecan than any others. And we're just gonna char the crap out of everything. Let's put this on. And yeah, that's hot. Let's do it. Alright, starting to get some char on everything. Probably gonna take those tomatoes out. Keep those onions going. Peppers are looking good. Alright, so I got all my peppers all charred up. All the tomatoes. And the onions. So we're just gonna let those cool down for a little bit because they're too hot to handle right now. Just like this one.
Too hot to handle.
How you coming?
Good. I'm almost done with the first box. I'm blanching a few more tomatoes. I had to run the food mill a little bit more. But so far, everything's going really well.
Yeah. Phew. It's hot out there.
I bet it is.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going.
Let's keep chugging along. Hey.
Hi.
Careful with that knife there.
Yes.
Alright, so what are you doing with that glove over there?
So the peppers are cool now.
Okay.
And now it's just time to, take the stem out. And we'll save these for later to put in the Vitamix and mix it all up together.
Okay.
So that's really about it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Those peppers look pretty good.
Yeah, they do.
So we had what, a poblano, several jalapeno, and several habanero, right?
That's correct.
And you charred these on the grill and used a little bit of pecan smoke.
Yes. I put some pecan chips in the smoker or grill. And yeah.
Did you smoke the chips first?
Smoke the chips first.
I mean soak the chips.
Nah, because I use big chunks.
Okay.
I didn't really have chips, I had chunks.
Okay.
So, that's what I do.
Alright. Well, let's check back in a little bit once you get those onions and tomatoes going.
Alright.
Alright, bye. Alright, so we are about a third of the way done with the tomatoes. So I'm just continuing now to peel these, get all the seeds out. So we've got our little assembly line here.
Down to 2 boxes.
We're down to 2 boxes, so I'm about to do the food mill again, get a little bit more juice, and keep on going.
I got the salsa, so here's all the onions that I peeled. There's all the peppers. And I'm working on the tomatoes, just taking the cores out. And it goes in the Vitamix with some other stuff.
So, since you're going to be on your feet a lot during this process, and it's really hot being near the stove, you got to make sure you stay hydrated all day long.
Hydrated with what? Tito's?
Anything that you feel like hydrating.
And you gotta make sure you have proper shoes.
I don't know how proper they are, but you need at least some house shoes or floor mat or something.
Format.
Yep, I switched between the floor mat and the stool. So, all right, gonna food mill and keep on going.
Keep on checking. All right, so I put about half of the tomatoes, half of the onions, and half of the peppers into the blender, and a cup of lime juice, and a tablespoon of salt. Now we're gonna go turn this on. Here we go. Good info. So here's the salsa. So that was 10 pounds of stuff, and it made, I don't know, maybe half a gallon? We'll measure it out later.
Maybe a gallon.
And now it's time to take my annual picture.
Annual picture.
All right, take
Let's
it.
do it. Okay, so it's been almost 7 hours since I started peeling these tomatoes. I'm down to my last 3.
Almost done.
I'm almost done.
So here's one
So, right. So,
thing.
yep.
There's 2 things. There's the 3rd one.
Yep.
So that's all the meat. There's some juice in there.
There's a little juice in there that we'll still have to filter out.
This is 1 bowl of the tomato juice. And I'm working on a second one. Not done with that. This is all of the waste, plus some like
Random trash.
paper towels and
and
stuff.
funky tomatoes that were bad.
So this is it. That's all the waste. We got the water going on the pot on the stove now for the canning process. So we'll get that going here pretty soon.
All right. Well,
Is this the last one?
this is the last tomato. It's the last one that I gotta peel. And I'm very, very happy that I'm done with this part of the process.
Yeah, this is the worst.
This is the worst part. This is the hardest part. We tried. That's it. We
All
tried
done?
to get all done. We tried to get Todd to try to peel some tomatoes, and that was an unsuccessful attempt. So he got the job of rotating the moolie and the food mill and getting the juice ready to go. So you won't have any guesses on how many pints this is gonna make? Any guesses?
Let's see. I'm gonna say 20 of the
Pints.
tomatoes.
20 pints of tomatoes,
Yeah.
and what do you think for juice?
8.
I think 10 of juice and 20 of tomato. 15 of tomatoes and 10 of juice.
Okay. And then we got the salsa over there.
Yeah, we
This is
still
it.
can the salsa.
So, all right, we got more stuff to do.
Got more stuff to do.
It is
It's
6:48.
6:48 p.m. So I think we've got another 5 or 6 hours.
All right, here we go.
Alright, so now it's finally time to put the tomatoes into the jars. So these are ball jars. You can get them just at your normal grocery store or hardware store, but they need to be sterilized before you put your tomatoes in them. So we've done it one way in the past where you dip them in boiling water and let them sit in the boiling water for like maybe 20-30 seconds and then fill them. But if you do that, it just takes too long. So on your dishwasher, on most dishwashers, there's a sterilized cycle. I think, where's that?
Sandy rinse.
Sandy rinse. That's your sterilized. So it's super high heat sterilized cycle. So that's what we did for our jars. We did that last year. It worked really great. So once your jars are sterilized, you're ready to put your tomatoes in. For canning tomatoes, tomatoes are right on the edge of the acidity level for it to be shelf stable. So you need to add some citric acid or lemon juice. So I have the citric acid here. So this is actually used specifically for canning tomatoes and replaces lemon juice. It says it right on the bottle. I don't really like the taste of the lemon juice with the tomatoes, especially since I want to use the tomatoes later for sauce. So the citric acid will give you that acidity that you need without having that nasty lemony flavor. You also have to add salt. This is just normal table salt. So each jar will get a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of the citric acid, and then they will be filled with the tomatoes. You want to leave about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of headroom. So what that means is it's just space from the top of the tomatoes to the top of the jar. So let me just do one jar real quick. Here's my salt. And there's my citric acid. And These funnels come really handy. This is a funnel from the Ball Canning Company. So it comes in a canning kit. It also comes with some tongs to pick up your jars, which we'll look at later, and a magnetic picker for your lids, which we'll look at later too. So you'll just put that in there. It fits in there. It's big enough to fit in this size jar, but it'll also fit into the smaller half pint jars just fine. And we'll go with this guy. Just grab some tomatoes and shove it on in there. So when you're filling your jars, you want to make sure that there's not any air bubbles. You want to really make sure that it's packed in there. So you can use your fingers when you're just pushing it in, but you also can use a butter knife. Works really well to just kind of run it along the side of the jar. So just keeping in mind of that headroom, I'm gonna just put a couple more pieces in there just to get it to where I want it. And that's about as full as I'm gonna go. As kind of a gauge, you can use kind of the screw ridges, I don't know what they're called, of the jar, and that's kind of the line you want to go to. And that's it. I'm filling the jar. I have tomatoes in my jars now, so sometimes there's a little spillage. It happens. But you have to go around and you have to wipe the edges of all of your jars to make sure there's a clean edge so you can get a good seal. So I'm almost done with these.
While you're doing that, I was taking our lids
and sterilizing
the lids, I think it also like loosens up some of that rubber seal. Right?
It softens it. Yep.
You put them in there like silver on top of silver and then white on top of white.
Right, so they don't like stack together.
I got this little magnet thing to get them out.
Yeah, so you're not dipping your hand in
So is it
hot
time?
water. It's time. Let's put the lids on. Do you want me to?
Your demo one.
Okay. So magnet, and just kind of lay it on there.
And then we get a ring.
That's it, and then we get a ring.
Over there.
And you want this to be fingertip tight. So you just kind of get it on there, and then just like that, where it doesn't spin anymore. That's it, you're done. So once all of those are done, then it's time to put it into boiling water. This is considered water bath canning. So for this, you need to have it in boiling water, and you need to have at least 1 inch or 2 of water above the jar as well to make sure that the water is circulating properly. And I believe for these are considered cold pack because the product that we're putting in it is not heated first. Cold pack, you'll need 35 minutes for a pint, and for hot pack, it's 10 minutes. Hot pack, I think, is hard because you can't really work with the product as much with your, if it's steaming hot. So I'm gonna finish these up and then we're gonna pop them in. So Todd is now putting the jars into the water bath. And these are the handy tongs I was talking about earlier. They really grip the jar nicely, and it also helps trying to take the jars out later, since that's boiling water. So
you have to make sure you don't fill this too high, because you don't want to boil over.
Okay, so how many do you think you can get in there?
I've got 6 in there. I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
Set a timer. Cover it.
So even though this is a pressure cooker, just a disclaimer, we're not using it as a pressure cooker. We're just using it as a giant pot. So, ready to load up some more?
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
What are you doing there, Todd?
Safety first.
Safety first. Ooh, more gloves.
So, all right, that's your timer.
It's a timer. Yes, it's 8 o'clock.
All right, 1 batch should be done.
Okay.
It's gonna be hot. Let's take them out. We use cookie sheets because it's kind of dirty and nice.
Yeah, sometimes there's just deposit from the water. That doesn't affect what's in the jar at all.
But then you listen,
I'm gonna come over here.
see if there's a pop. Wait for these guys to seal.
Sometimes you have to dry the water off the top but to hear the pop real good, but let's see what it does.
Ooh, I heard
I
one.
heard one. As Todd's taking these out too, he's not tipping the jar at all. He's taking it straight out. You don't want to angle it too much when it's coming out. So it's totally fine if there's a little leftover water on top there.
Hi.
Hey!
So your hair's different.
It is because it is now tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
So these are all of our jars. This is the product of all of our canning yesterday. It took a total of 14 hours. I tapped out a little early, but Todd finished up the last batch of processing in the water bath. Literally right before midnight. It was like 11:58 and it was like the jars were out. So it was a really, really long day yesterday. But we ended up with a ton of product here.
What did we get?
So we have 34 pints of the San Marzano tomatoes cans. So there's 34 pints here. And then we have 17 pints of the tomato juice. When you process it, the water content, it tends to separate, so it's not a problem. This isn't anything bad. Just when you decide to use it, you just shake it and it's good to go. And then we have 17 jars of salsa, and this ended up producing about, I think, 10 pints of salsa total. So lots of tomato product. The house smelled a little like tomatoes this morning, but not too bad. But yeah, so this is what 60 pounds of tomatoes can get you. And I think Todd showed earlier, but we only ended up with about 3.5 pounds of waste for the skins and the seeds, since we were able to process through the food mill and get out the juice.
So, last question.
Yeah.
Where are we gonna put all this?
So I'm gonna need to spend some time in the pantry. But these are gonna have to stay here on the counter for probably another 12 to 18 hours. So after you can, you really shouldn't move the cans around that much. They are sealed, but just to make sure that the integrity of the seal is good, you just don't want to be jostling jars around. So these will stay here on the counter for probably the rest of the day, and then this evening I'll need to find some space in the pantry. But you love this because then I can make homemade sauce and all sorts of good culinary treats.
So we could have just made sauce yesterday and been done.
No, that would have been taking so much longer.
All right, love you.
All right, love you. Bye.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes.